everyone, the facilitator in particular, and good morning, Dr. Umlambo and the panel. This topic always excites me. That is why I'm like shrugging my shoulders. As a person that is involved in HEIs from Vet School of Education through Umlambo, the main problem that we have, that I see personally, so that I don't repeat other things that people have said. Amongst all those other things, placement is one of the other challenges that we face. Because of lack of employment, you find that a person has been trained, not necessarily on foundation phase teaching, but on another phase. And when someone says, come, there's a job, come and do whatever you need to do, like put your foot in, and then you'll be able to find your way through the system, because we've got different forms of training in terms of all those levels. So that's the first one. And then the closure of colleges and the amalgamation with universities. We then found ourselves having colleges looming with not necessarily the right content that speaks to teacher training. And when those students go to particular schools and train, they don't have facilitators that train them. Even the teachers in other schools, we find that they don't even monitor those children. So I think the system has failed because we were asking ourselves, my age group, and saying, why at our age we can read for meaning, and today's generation can't read for meaning? So what is it that has gone wrong? So, and then the other thing is the status that goes with the training and the focus that the department has given in education in general. I feel that it was too general. Maybe now it needs to be focused, like you were saying, have specific programs that focus on foundation phase teaching or training, and specifically the areas that we are challenged with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. I would like to weigh in on one issue that Mayor Chandama laments, and that is the absence of a uniform and clearly delineated policy on reading. That resonates with me as a publisher, because whenever we develop reading materials or reading programs, each publishing house will conduct its own research, do its own collaborations, and forge partnerships with whoever to develop their own reading program. In the final analysis, you've got a myriad of reading programs which don't necessarily talk to one another. Now, in the final analysis, you have poor teachers and selectors of materials groping in the dark as to which program would be suitable for their own learners. I find that, the real elephant in the room. Thank you.
We only have teachers, we have publishers, we have people who are trainers. It really is good to hear all of the voices. I'll come back to you, Vhembe, before my panelists fight with me. Can we move to something else that has been that has come up as a recommendation from the DBE, which is about upscaling the teaching of reading literacy in schools? Ma'am, I'm going to ask ma'am right at the end.
Thank you, ma'am. Hey, mine is a very long story. I've prepared more than enough. Yeah, I don't know if you'll give me time just to show these people what they should do, maybe to minimize the number of learners who could not read. Okay. Mine, I've prepared recommendation number 2, which says upscale the teaching of reading literacy in schools. This could be in the form of professional development for language teachers to enhance their pedagogical content knowledge. Teachers should start with the basics, such as building vocabulary, how to decode, phonological awareness, and phonics, but should also extend their teaching strategies. Here we've got the guiding questions. Question number 1. What are the current approaches of teaching reading for meaning in primary schools? Here I've mentioned few, but which are important for the current approach which are being used now. The first one, teachers should teach phonic and phonemic awareness. By phonemic awareness, I mean that is the relationship between the letter and the sound it makes. For example, in letters of alphabet, we say C, but when we read it's K. Then in home language, the learner can say Pu, when she wants to say Pu, for Puka. Then this knowledge, learners are unable to pronounce the phonics. Then the weakness of learners or the challenge, learners lack awareness of letter-sound relationships. They don't know. So the other thing is to teach group-guided reading. I'm not going to go deep in group-guided reading. Teachers know how to teach group-guided reading. The teacher take a group of learners with the same reading ability. She select one story and teach them in the reading corner, where the teacher pick up some words which are difficult to learners. She first explained them. Then they do decoding with learners so that when learners read those words, they will read them fluently. Another reading strategy is shared reading. Here we use big books. There are big books out there. We have seen them. Here the teacher read for enjoyment with learners, with the whole class. The teacher read for, there is stages in shared group, in shared reading. The first one is pre-read, which is for prediction. The learner will have to predict what is going to happen to the story by just looking at the pictures. Yes. Then they can also predict by looking at the topic of the story. Let's say, for example, the story will be saying, going for shopping. When you ask learners, you can say to learners, what do you think is going to happen there to the shopping mall? It's a pre-read. From pre-read, we go to first read. During first read, the teacher will first read the story. The teacher should act out feelings from the story. That when you read to learners the story, when you come to the word, maybe for example, the boy was crying for her mother. You can say, the boy was crying for her mother, smiling. You must show emotion. Maybe the mother come with a cake for the birthday, which means the child will be excited because she's happy for the cake. It's first read. Then there are so many things that we can do in first read. I think when we go back to our circuit, we'll have a workshop where we are going to workshop everyone on how to teach reading. I'm not done. I said I've prepared enough, and I can't go with these things. I'll have to show you. Stage 4 is post-read. This is the last stage. I don't know if I said the third stage. I didn't say the third stage. The third stage is... second read. Second read. The second read, the teacher will have to read the story again, while learners will be listening. Then after listening, the teacher will ask questions, just to find out if learners were listening. Then the last one is stage 4, which is post-read. Here, we expect answers from learners. The learners act out the story, what they have read from the teacher. They dramatize the story. They illustrate the story by drawing the part of the story which was interesting. Then they recount the story, they summarize the story. This can be done by grade 2 and grade 3 learners. Then another guiding question was the barrier. Why learners cannot read and write? Here I've written this. learners cannot read, learners cannot decode, because the educators are not training them to decode. They don't know how to decode. Lack of knowing letter sounds, relationship, content gap. Here is for the teacher and learners. Is the poor application of teaching reading skills by the teacher. Because from the experience which I know, educators are not following the different types of reading skills. Every time when you go to school, you will see learners reading as a whole class. There are no group guided reading because the ability of learners are not equal. Learners, you should teach them in groups. Those who have high ability should get their story, middle, low. So teachers are teaching the whole class without considering the group 4, which does not know how to read. And at the end of the year, they're going to pass to the next grade. The last one is, educators are not using or familiarizing themselves with a curriculum statement. I mean this one. This. When you go to a school, you can find that they do not have this. They are in the cupboards. And this is the Bible of the school. You can't do anything without reading from this book. I think I don't, can you give me another 5 minutes or 2? I want to show them what you can do to improve reading to learners. I won't do anything because it needs maybe an hour. Let me show few things that you can do to assist learners to read. I first started with this picture. This is a picture of an orange tree. As you can see, it is fully grown. It has got oranges, which means the owner of this tree was responsible. Isn't it so? Yeah. Yes. It starts from the roots. The roots are grade R learners. They are coming from home. They come as a seed, which is planted at the school. They are the roots of the school. So the teacher should be welcoming and be prepared to feed them so that this tree can grow. From the roots we are coming to the stem. The stem of the tree should grow bigger because these learners from grade R, they were fed properly. From the stem we go to the branches. This tree can have many branches because it was fed well. The branches is grade 2 learners. This grade 2 is a center of foundation phase. If a grade 2 teacher fails to teach, the whole foundation phase will be a loss. So the branches grow is grade 2 learners. From the branches, there are fruits. These fruits are equal and they are big. They are grade 3 learners, ready to go to the intercell phase. So the intercell phase will taste these oranges to see if they are sweet or sour. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm not done. I'm not done. I'll start by grade R educator. Foundation phase start from grade R. If grade R educator do teach learners well, they will go to grade 1, knowing all the letters of alphabet, recognizing them, learn more about counting. Then when they go to grade 1, a grade 1 educator should have a chart like this one. These are letters of alphabet from B to Z. These are the vowels. So when you teach learners this chart every day, we say, can I switch on to Vhembe so that you can understand better? Musirich kobali sanga machironi, rikotoma hapa ka police. Police yotori budza zvavudi yari from term 1 to 3. Vana kava ite mubulo wa maledere alphabet. Duva limwe na limwe. Ubva ka term 1 nosvika ka term 3. Ava mbudze arali vana voita mubulo wa maḽeḓere alphabet ubva kha 1 uswika kha 3 ungavha na ṅwana a sa kona u vhala zwi nga si konadzee ngori vhone vha tshi khou vhalisa aḽa maḽeḓere alphabet vha dovha vha vha na dzi phonic freeze dzine vha ḓo vhea kha luvhondo musi ri tshi ri bu ra ri baba musi ṅwana a tshi khou ṅwala ḽeḓere a hangwa bu u ḓo sedza kha mini kha luvhondo matshelo u ḓo dovha ḽi sedza u ḓo vha a khou ḽi ḓivha then musi ri tshi ḓa hafhanoni kha phoḽisi ho to ṅwaliwa upfhi hezwi ndi khou tama u vhavhalela uri vha ṱuwe vha tshi zwi ḓivha vha vhudzeni vhadededzi vhavho ndi khou amba vho principal page 66 ya phoḽisi iri u guda mubulo wa maḽeḓere alphabet dzoṱhe dza Tshivenḓa tsumbo a b d e f u swika kha mini kha z hapfhi maḽeḓere aya a rengele u vhala tshifhinga tshoṱhe u swikela vhagudi vha tshi vho kona u a ḓivha u a vhala vha khou zwi pfha ha ambiwa hapfhi musi vho no guda pfhala ndoṱhe na themba kha u itiwe nḓowenḓowe dza u vhumba maipfi nga u ṱanganya themba ndi mme na pfhala ndoṱhe ndi ṅwana hezwi na zwone ndi zwone zwa important arali nṋe nda sokou ṱuwa nda ya kilasini nda swika ndiri na musi ndi khou funza mubvumo wa tshi ndo sokou tswi sa zwezwi ava vhana vha ḓo ḓa vhege i ḓo vha tshi u ḓivha vha nga si u ḓivhe mara arali nṋe nda nga ya kilasini ndo fara hezwi zwithu zwanga zwo ḓala ri ḓo zwi ita luvuhuthi hezwi ndi zwa ara zwe nda vha ndo prepare uri vha fanela u thoma ngo ita mini kha vhana athi nga zwi ambi kha vhana ndi zwi litshi hafha musi vhone vha tshi khou swika kilasini vha sathu amba na tshina tshithihi na musi ri khou ḓo guda mubvumo muswa ndi mini hetshi ndi tshanḓa ichi ndi tshoko ichi ndi tshidulo ichi ndi tshienda then vhone vha thoma u bula uri na musi ri khou ḓo guda na musi ni tshi khou bula hafha vheiwe no amba maipfi o fhambananaho mubvumo we na thoma u bula ngawo ndi ufhio hu bula vhana vhone vhaṋe ndi ufhio ndi tshi kha musi havha una ṅwana o thanyaho ndi nnyi ane anga mpeletela mubvumo wa tshi uri ndi ufhio tshiri ṅwana kha ri a peletha nṋe nda ita mini nda u imisa kana nda ṅwala kha mini kha chalkboard musi ndi tshi fhedza hafhaḽa ndi khou ḓa kha maipfi kha zwifanyiso zwanga hezwiḽani nda dzhia tshifanyiso tshanga na ipfi kha ri tshelede tshiri tshelede tshiri nda ri a ri bule roṱhe tshelede uri ṅwana a tshi ṅwala maṅwe maipfi a sa pfuke mubvumo wa vhukati kha vha mugudise u bula ipfi a pfhe zwori tshelede ḽi na madungo mangani mararu tshelede a kone u ḽi khethekanya sa hezwi tshelede a kone u ḽi peṱekanya a sumbedze zwori tshelede yo itiwa nga mini nga tshi na e na l na e na d na e ṅwana u ḓo kona u vhala then kha grade heiḽa chat yanga i songo uma ndi songo amba ngayo hey chat this chat only 2 minutes this chat only 2 minutes this chat hey chat hey ndi yone amba dzifhele kha grade 1 nṋe ndi mudededzi wa grade 1 hey chat hey ndi khou funza mubvumo wanga wa mini wa bo tiri vhana vha khou ḓivha ba baby bobo tate didodo u swika kha zeteti nṋe ndi sokou sumba hafha nda sokou ri ba da nda sumba ari calcium ari baka ari anga bara vha zwi vhona nga heibo ndi vhumba maipfi manzhi manzhi zwa zwo ri u funza mubvumo muthihi a si zwone ngori a huna ḽipfi ḽi no vhumbiwa nga mubvumo muthihi bere bisi basa vha khou pfha zwo ri khou ita manzhi manzhi zwi amba uri nga themu 1 vhana vha grade 1 vha a kona u vhala vhana vha a kona u vhala ende vha a kona u fhaṱa mafhungo musi vha tshi fhaṱa mafhungo vha fhaṱa mafhungo ngo thoma nga zwipfi nga zwifhungo zwiṱukuṱuku haḽa maipfi ara vha ri khou amba khe vhana vho a ita iwe wa ṅwala wa vhuya kha luvhondo vhana vha ita mini vha vhala u sa vha fheleli mbilu hezwiḽa zwe ramba hafhanoni kha grade 1 hu na maipfi o no pfi sight words then sight words a ri khou amba dza thimu ine vhone vha ḓo vha khou i funza sight words ri khou amba maipfi ane ra a shumisa ḓuvha liṅwe na liṅwe hu na mme hu na baba hu na vhathu vho funzaho kalesa nne vha khou ari koni u ambarisa dzhenisi asi zwone kha ri ite uri ri a funḓedze vhana uri ri tshi ri vhana vha funze vha fhaṱe mafhungo mapfufhipfufhi vha thome nga fa o lala a lila vha khou pfa zwone mafhungo a sa konḓi ha lindeli themu 3 yayo nga themu 1 ya konadzea u a mama vha khou zwi vhona malume vha sea na mme ndi maipfi a themu 1 yayo ane vhana vha a kona u vhala nga themu 1 vhone vha vha ṱoḓela vhona bugu dzine dza vha na zwiṱori zwa single sounds tshiri ndo livhuwa. Thank you very much.
The Foundation is never going to ask me to facilitate anything. And indeed, Panama grade 1, at term 1, and what we also want is that they should be able to understand their meaning in sentences.
I don't know if you can tell, but the second you started talking about guided reading, I just perked up because I cannot stress the importance of it. But the one thing that I wanted to touch base on as well is just the importance of taking a multi-sensory approach to teaching reading. It's not enough for the students to just see the letters on the page. They have to use all of their senses. They have to hear it. They have to feel it. I don't know if you can figure out a way to smell it, but the more senses that you can include in reading, the more that the students are going to take on what they're learning and internalize that learning. I feel like we just had a master class in how you teach, but in doing that, but then also letting your students feel as they're doing that, write the letters in sand, clap it out on their arms, hear songs. That's just going to help them internalize that learning that much more. And just to your question about in terms of training, what can we do? Exactly what we just saw. It's not enough just to have a one-off training for when it comes to teaching reading. You need to have the training. You need to see someone modeling what you're learning. You need to to have mentorship opportunities. So that when you're going back into your classroom and because how many times have we been to a training, you get all excited about what you're learning, you get back into your classroom, it doesn't work, yeah? As much as you might want it to. It's having that expertise that you can turn to and say, I learned this. I know you taught me how to do it in the training. How do I execute it in my classroom? And keeping that constant cycle with training. It's not okay just to have the initial training. You need to have it modeled. You need to have mentorship. And you need to have additional opportunities for training so that it's a cycle that you're going through.
Thank you so much. We're listening to teachers who are passionate about what they do. Very passionate indeed. We're now going to move slightly to talking about the curriculum. I mean, these things are all connected. And because you'd seen, I'm going to ask the head of curriculum next to me here to lead us, to tell us what he's speaking to, and then talk to us about the time allocation. We're all saying the teaching of reading is important, the methodology is important, but not just for them to recognize the words, to be able to sound them, but to know their meaning and be able to use them in sentences and make meaning. Let's hear from the curriculum session.
Afternoon, once more, colleagues. I'm talking to on curriculum. Then the recommendation is that revising the curriculum policy. It's about revising the curriculum policy, specifically the time available for reading and writing. Currently, the curriculum provides 6 hours for home language per week. But this period of 6 hours is divided among the different skills the learners must be competent in, leaving the skill of reading with only 5 hours per 2-week cycle. This time could be extended considering the stages of reading. Now the guiding question is as follows. What is your take on curriculum policy as it stands now? How would you suggest the policy be revised? My take on this one is that you have heard Mr. indicating the paths of skills that we have in the foundation phase. And as it stands now and described, on the recommendation is correct. On the shared reading, currently we've got 15 minutes, and on the guided reading, we've got 15 minutes, meaning that the time is not ample enough for learners to gather the skills. And you can see the extent which she has gone just by giving us this example to see that there's much work to be done. Now, one would say, as the department, we have considered this and we are following the Limpopo Reading for Meaning Improvement Plan, which after the 2019 Lekhuta, with the previous PELS, where they sat down and said, we must do something. Wherein we have incorporated in this reading, reading for pleasure and reading for academic, which is going to address part of this because we are enticing our learners to be part of this reading. Now the curriculum is being reviewed now and then. Remember, we are from NCS where we had the curriculum statement and we said curriculum assessment statement. Why that one? We were strengthening the assessment part where learners have to take the center stage into reading when we are addressing this today's concept now, what we are talking about. And we were saying that it can be reviewed to increase the notion time or the teaching time. Because what is happening now is that teachers, only those that can go an extra mile, are able to assist our learners. But if it is fixed in the notional time to say we've increased the time by this particular amount of margin, it would mean that learners will have much time to learn.
Absolutely.
The curriculum is not that it has to be totally revised, but the implementation part is very key. We would clone when it's if cloning was legal, so that we can multiply the number of teachers we have in the country. But through sharing the skills, not undermining other teachers that are teaching Foundation phase, through sharing these skills, we can collaborate and end up being many Foundationnists and others who are better than her, who are there only after being, when we have in service training for Bagari, and we are able to, all of ourselves, gather these skills and assist the learners, and have to be addressed. And we have policies in the department, the inclusive policy, we've got the CS policy wherein we are able to provide learners and assist them towards achieving what we aspire to get. So I had an opportunity to be part of the curriculum competency framework, which is addressing the gaps that we have, considering also the gaps that we got from the 3 waves of COVID-19, that our learners have gaps. And this issue of learners not be able to read and write is so gross that even in grade 8 and 9, where learners who can read and write, and we are surprised to say, how did they arrive here? And when we check the results for grade 2 in our districts, both districts, the results for grade 2 are very high. There's no challenge if you look at the results to say there's no problem here. Learners are passing in 98%. So when we see pills, then we get surprised. Now it provides or gives us an opportunity to go back to our drawing boards and re-strategize so that we are able to address the challenges that we have, to review and also amend some of the things, also add on other skills that can help, because our learners really lack the foundational competence. I think I'll pause here to give others a chance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very important points that are raised. And I think we must take them very seriously. Can I just pick on something that you said? You said together with DBE, you agreed that you're no longer, you're assessing for learning. Okay? Can I just check, do we still have something called early grade reading assessment?
Yes, we have AGRA in our foundation phase, and they have two toolkits. Schools have toolkits, we take audit, but as I've indicated, the implementation part had to be monitored. But we are monitoring, we've got subject advisors in foundation phase that are monitoring to make sure that we've got reading corners, we've got AGRA toolkits that are being used. And last year it was surprising when we were taking stock and went to schools to find that even some of the teachers did not know what this kit is about. But as of now, we've workshopped them, and I think they're on board and they were moving well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very important, because I'm saying there are things that come into the system that are meant to take us where we should be. Because that AGRA is meant to monitor the reading for you to be able to teach. It also, I mean, that's when you would see whether they are reading for understanding or not. It's all part of that toolkit. So we need to look at some of the things that we have.
Can I just make one point?
Okay. I give Joy the opportunity to make a point. I want us to move also to the issue of indigenous languages, which is very important, because the Pearls report shows that our children cannot read for meaning even in our in home languages, and I think that needs a bit of discussion.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping out of my chair at this. It just hit me. So you said that there's 5 hours of reading instruction typically across the course of the week. Did I get that correct? Okay. So if you're looking at an international perspective and the amount of instructional time that students internationally are getting versus what students are getting in South Africa, for instance, in the US, we follow Common Core standards in the US. Same with Dubai. It's mandated that students get 120 hours a day of reading instruction, which means students in the States are getting what your students are getting in 2.5 days versus what your students are getting for the entire week. And it is mandated. It's a minimum of 120 hours per day of reading a day, 90 minutes a day of math. And so if you look at that across the course of a term, the instruction that students internationally, and the same is said in a lot of the countries who are really progressing in reading, Singapore, Finland, they are getting a minimum of 120 hours a day of instruction. And so to your point with guided reading, with 120 hours, I taught first grade forever, it feels. I was able to do a whole group lesson with my students, teach an individual sound with my students, work on reading comprehension, and that only took 1 hour. 45 minutes if I was really doing good. And then I could put them into reading centers and then take that time to meet with, I would meet every single day with 5 different reading groups and instruct them at their level, so that we're constantly pushing them along. But that's because we had that much time to do it. And so when you're looking at what students globally are getting in terms of instruction versus what your students are getting with the 5 hours, to me it makes sense why there might be a little bit of a gap, because there's just such a discrepancy in the amount of instructional time that they get for reading. So that really stood out to me in asking the teachers to be able to do all these things that we know need to happen, but the policymakers should really focus on giving the teachers the time that they need to provide quality in reading instruction for their students. So I just wanted to make sure that I stressed that point.
Thank you so much. A very important point indeed. There is a lady that I've ignored, and I think if she's got a comment to make at this point, I would rather ask her. Is
it this one? To me.
Is it to me?
Yeah.
And can you lead us nicely into the issue of indigenous languages? I really want us to talk about our home languages, if you can.
All right. My point was, there's so much to say, so I'm going to try and be quick. There is something that I saw when Mayor was giving a presentation. I'm blown away. I got goosebumps. We need people like you, but unfortunately, we can't all be like you. You are gifted in that sense, and the best that you can do is train people to be fluent in what you are doing, because no one can do it like you. So I think we owe you a very big round of applause.
Wow.
And then speaking about the number of hours, the policies, and everything that we've been speaking about, and the teachers that we have in our classrooms, and the gap between the university and the school. I am one of those people, I'm the 1%, if there is the 1%, of the people that went into the education fraternity kicking and screaming. Because I had done my junior degree in something else, and when I didn't get a job after a year, my mother was like, listen, you studied what you wanted to study, now you're going to listen to me. You are going to study towards being a teacher so that you can get a job, so that you can take care of yourself. So I'm that 1%. But I am sitting in front of this panel right now, and I'm going to tell you that I am one of the best teachers that South Africa has.
Yeah. Wow.
The reason I say that I'm one of the best teachers is because when I went into the classroom the first time, I was like, okay, I need to get the salary at the end of the month. But after 3 months, I saw something that I'd never seen in my life. I saw the innocence that people say, when people say children are innocent, I saw that innocence in the children. I saw the love in the children, and that is when my passion started. The school where I started teaching had the best environment. It did not have the best resources. Right now I'm in a school that is very well resourced, but the school where I started had the best environment. The principal knew his story, the departmental heads knew the story, the staff, they were willing to help me as a new teacher. And today I've got 12 years of teaching experience. It's only now that I'm thinking I've overstayed my welcome in the industry that I'm looking to go into the office space, because I feel I've got something to bring there. But what I want to say is that we shouldn't look at teachers who did not initially study towards being teachers because they wanted to be teachers, they were passionate, but we need to focus on the environment, because environment can evoke the passion. Mm-hmm. No one is born passionate, but if you're in the right space, you can develop passion. Mm-hmm. And then there is what Joy was saying about the number of hours and what's not. And there's been a lot of talk about policy and what's not. There is a lot of pressure from the Department of Education with your curriculum coverage, your performance, the statistics, all of those things, they disrupt teachers. So we need to bridge the gap. The Department of Education needs to work together with the school principals, so that we take those things out of the way, because they really come they come across as a stumbling block. Speaking about the indigenous languages now, I'm trying to run smoothly across this one. I believe that we spoke about the universities not being in sync with what the schools need. And I'm thinking we are jumping the gun. We first need to look at the family. The family, the home where the child grows, is the most important part of a child learning to read and write and count. If we can focus on the family that can create the love, the family can create the passion for reading, the family can create the curiosity, so that the learners go to school curious about reading, curious about speaking fluently, curious about counting. If we can start there, then we can pave the way across. To bring this point to the indigenous language thing, we are Africans, and I am blown away about Vhembe. It's my first time in Vhembe. All the way from where we were staying to here, I was blown away. The landscape, the beautiful houses, the big houses, and what Ujidi said about the GDP. I think all those things just come together. With the beautiful houses, they tell me that we've got big families. There are big people, big families living in those households. And as the African people, I think we need to go back to our roots. Our roots where the elders will sit with their children and do storytelling. Now that we've got this problem of literacy, so when the grandmother or the mother or the aunt is telling that inganekwane to the learners, that story, they can pretend to be holding a book. Tell the story as if they are reading, when they're actually telling the story from the heart. So that those little children can listen to Gogo and think, oh my, I want to be able to read that book so that I can read it like Gogo. So that is when we are bringing in our indigenous languages into the mix, and then we are building the family structure. Children will want to go home for that family time so that we can have these conversations. I've got a lot to say, but I know that we are pressed for time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Earlier in the car about leadership in schools, and you've heard it come up here. You've heard about if the principal can't lead and do it, it won't, happen. We're hearing you saying the environment, but you're saying where I started teaching, the principal knew his story. So the issue of school leadership, I know it's an area that Umlambo are interested in, and I think we must take it seriously. Thank you so much. So she started us off on the issue of indigenous languages. Let's reflect a bit on the role of our indigenous languages in the learning of English. You see, of a second language, if we put it that way, because our children are being tested here in a second language primarily, although they were tested in our indigenous languages as well. Let's talk, what do you feel as teachers around here? What is the role, because you are in these schools, what is the role of our indigenous languages in assisting children learn other languages as well? Let me just check what the question said, because Ruile is going to kill me because she gave me guidelines and I'm not looking at them. Firstly, the question was, do we, as a country, do we show that we put a premium on our indigenous languages? I think that's an important question. Are we showing that we put a premium on our indigenous languages? And then the second question is the value of the first language at foundation phase in developing reading comprehension competencies in our learners. So what role do our indigenous languages play to teach these competencies that we're talking about? They are not only in English, they are in our indigenous languages. I saw some hands.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Before I comment on language, I would just need to make a comment on curriculum policy. I've heard the gentleman saying there will be a change in curriculum policy. Now, the question is, our educators, do they understand the policy? Because if you can understand the policy, it's easy to interpret and to apply the policy. But you would find that the reason we cannot get across with reading and everything is because the same educators cannot interpret the policy, cannot apply the policy, and that poses a problem. In terms of the language, most of the students that are being trained now, they have done home language as English, and they are expected to come back to our schools in townships to teach learners their indigenous languages. So it poses a challenge, as now you'd find most of our schools, our indigenous languages are fading away because the same educators who are supposed to teach learners their language or their home language, they are kind of code switching from time to time. At the end of the day, you will never hear a lesson in Tshivenda or a lesson in Sesotho. The entire lesson in that one language. So I believe that the higher learning institutions should also look into the language as they train these educators. Because if learners can master reading in indigenous language, that says it's easy for them to be confident in other languages. But if they don't have competence in their own home language, then it's a problem. And boils back to the family issue. We need to have centers where learners can go after school and have maybe retired educators who can sit and teach these learners how to read and give them maybe kind of a homework to say, you go and read this story. Tomorrow you're going to tell us what you have read. And that will give learners confidence and the love of reading in their indigenous language, and also that will lead to the confidence to read in other languages. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're running out of time, so I'm trying to push this. Thank you very much for those comments. Can I ask you, and I'm looking at our publisher as well, there must be books in these indigenous languages readily available. Can I ask for a comment around that? Secondly, for second managers and other people who work in the district, when the Funza Lushaka bursary was introduced, one of the areas that were targeted were people who could teach in the foundation phase in indigenous languages. How is that working? Is it working? If it's not working, who is making it unworkable? Because this country has because as a country we decided this is an issue, and there was money, and we targeting people who we train for foundation phase teaching in their home languages. Are we getting them? Why not? Books. What books do we have in our schools in indigenous languages?
Thank you very much. I'm from the publishing house. So the books that we have in the publishing house, we develop books in all indigenous languages in South Africa. So what is happening is, based on what was discussed about group guided reading and first read, second read, and all that. So our books are developed in a manner that the group guided, the readers, although are graded, you'll find that we have books that are for advanced readers, books that are for intermediate readers, and books that are for beginner readers. This makes it possible for a learner in the same grade to be reading the same kind of content but at different reading levels, because the understanding is the children are reading at different levels. And what that has done is the content or the topic that has been discussed, it's the same across all the learners, only that the advanced readers will be able to not feel that they're being dragged by the learner that is a beginner reader, or a beginner reader does not feel overpowered by an advanced reader. So that understanding has been taken into consideration when it comes to publishing books to accommodate learners reading at different reading levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And are we a credible market for you as the Department of Education? Are we buying those books?
Absolutely. The Department of Education are the bigger clients of publishing houses. The schools are the ones that decide the books that children need to, their school need to read. So, and what I need to emphasize is, in the past, books were the people that were writing books, the writers, were people maybe based in Gauteng. So what we have done is we brought people that are local people, like people in Vhembe, should be the one that are writing books, because the belief is their language has not been diluted. We find the correct wording, books are not being rejected by the school to say this word is not used. It's not like that. The sounding, the phonics, everything has to be relevant to how language is pronounced and done in that sector. For instance, if it's Tshivenda, the books ideally should be written or edited by people coming from Vhembe without any dilution of the language. So it's in Sepedi or in isiZulu, we avoid at all costs dilution or borrowed words. And we're trying to be Afrocentric. Even the English language, books are supposed to be written in South African English because it's not the same as your European English. So we're moving away from Eurocentric and bring Afrocentric language so that meaning is not lost. Because a donkey in South Africa is a donkey, but in another country something else and might not be the same meaning as that animal in South Africa.
Thank you so very much. I've been told I just have to stop at 3. So from my side, and it is now 3, we've talked. Give somebody else their chance. I'm going to ignore you because Mem is not seeing you.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm part of publishing. I wanted to talk about it. And in addition to that is that we are also working with the Department of Education. We are also offering training when it comes to reading. We are also supporting the teachers. We are also supporting the department officials with books that we have. And most of the time when we do this training, what I usually tell them is that if you don't have love for reading, then don't do that in the classroom, because if you are not in the mood to read for the learners will remain the same mood as you are. So if you are not happy, don't touch a book. And when you are happy, do that so that they can enjoy that with you. So that is what we are emphasizing and making sure that we support all the schools, all the principals, all the learners when it comes to this. So we are also trying to make sure that we are fighting this dilemma that we are facing, that learners have to read. So that is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And love people you say wabafuni. Yes. So the people at the back, she says I can take 5 more comments. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to talk about the books, reading books. The other issue is, if this year I ordered this book, I will give an example of Biblia, and I found that these books are not good enough, or they're not resourceable for my learners. When I wanted to order new books, because these ones are not good enough, they said I have to top up, which means even if the books are not good enough, I have to be forced to buy the ones that I can see that they are not useful to my learners. So that is the other barrier that is causing us, because the educators has been using this and it's not useful to the learners. So the other issue that I wanted to make a point is the issue of these new educators. Today we're having the department, we're having the staff establishment. We're saying, I've got 2 teachers that I'm needing in my school. So they will just be placing the educators that are not suitable to our classes. So these are the other factors that are causing our learners, because these teachers who are coming, they have negative attitudes towards teaching. When they come, if you don't sweat for something, you won't work for it. Because they are just placed without doing interview. When they come there, you can't tell them anything, because they are being placed without even making an interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much.
Those issues, she reminds me when we're still young. But anyhow, the target is here, ladies and gentlemen. God has given our children the brains and intelligence. When you are teaching, be cocksure, are you under linguistic intelligence, science intelligence? There is one of the issues which you should go deeper. She was demonstrating linguistic intelligence in terms of resources. Those resources will talk about picture intelligence so that meaning can be deepened. That's why our subjects or lessons nowadays are project-driven, practical-driven, learning for assessment. Once they will be given a project, they will understand it much better. Hence, learner-centeredness. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I mean, you have You really, I would love to be in your class. Thank you so much. Nechanda, your wealth of experience just showed through as you were speaking. It's just been an honor to be in your presence. I know that because I quickly opened up some of the things you would have wanted to say, you were not able to say, but thank you so much. And thank you so much for your insights into the curriculum. And you've made such points that although I'm a retiree, I think I'm still going to whisper in some of the ears in the DBE about some of the very important things that I've heard here today. And Joy, thank you so much for coming all the way and being here. You've been here all the time. You are known here more than I am. To everybody that is here, Amanda, thank you very much. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
I think they deserve another round of applause. Colleagues, we have been here for some hours, and this discussion was not in vain. And I'm so happy that we are here together with the principals of school. Somebody talked about leadership. Because if we are talking about leadership and we are talking about things that we're hearing, then we must go to the practical. And the practical part needs a leader who will implement. Because if we can listen to this, even if we spend a week, and at the end of the day, when we go back to our schools, we don't implement, it's a waste of time. Yeah. And I'm saying, I am fortunate that Bo Neshitangan is from Vuvu. Then when we go back, we need to have a meeting of the second. I was fortunate because during lesson observation of QMS, I moved, I think, more than 15 primary schools. The principals are the teachers of foundation phase. And believe me, these people who are well experienced, the teachers who are well experienced, they are doing great. And that lady is just exceptional one. Like she said, it's just 1%. Because most of the younger ones, they don't want to do what the elder teachers are doing. And this, in order to solve this challenge, there must be induction. Because you cannot blame a person that you are not doing this, whereas you didn't induct that person. And we are not doing that. And I think even in the side of us as second managers, we are also contributing. Because can you hear me? I'm talking about lesson observation of QMS because I didn't want Womjelo to kill me. I was forced to go at 6. Our focus is in grade 12. To such an extent that we forget about the primary school, and which is a challenge. I think, curriculum coordinator, this is a lesson, and really we must do something. And you were very good audience. Thank you very much. When we go back home, implementation is important. It's important. We must make it a point that our learners can read, write, and count. We will be blamed if we were taught and we didn't do anything. Colleagues, allow me to welcome Mr. Muchelero to render vote of thanks. I'm sorry. Mama want to.
Vote of thanks. I just want to make some comments. Firstly, really to thank the the panelists for making this discussion so lively, as well as informative, and the audience for participating the way you had.
I just want to emphasize the importance of paying attention to what is happening at primary school levels. I also feel I'm guilty of not having paid enough attention to what is happening in primary schools. And I think it's coming back to haunt all of us. So we are, as Umlambo Foundation, consciously making sure that we give as much attention to primary schools, especially where it is most needed. And this is one way we will start to do this work. I also would love that you find time to walk around in the exhibition outside and look at the books that are there from the publishers. We want to bring these publishers close to us so that maybe we can get free books, right? We want to work collectively with them. We want them to understand what your needs are so that as they produce books, it's guided by what your needs are. The relationship between reading and numeracy is something that we must not forget. A child who cannot read for meaning will not understand maths. Because also mathematics need you to have reading proficiency. So we must always see that there's a connection between those two. And I would really like if we're going to send you Machobeka to DBE, that they should help to really be very specific about what teachers in foundation phase need to know in order to do well in teaching, reading, writing, and counting, so that every university can also know that they must teach this, and there must be so much of this, and including the number of hours these teachers must give to reading once they get to schools. I don't think that we should just leave it in the open and have every university deciding for itself, every school or province deciding for itself, and then we have this unequal progress that we see in our schools. I know that there are some provinces that have increased the number of hours given to the children to read a week. This is because they can see that what they've been given by the department is not enough. So we don't want to leave any child behind. So we must make sure that the message gets through so that they can address this for all the teachers. And then the issue of leadership. I know that Umlambo Foundation, we've really neglected principals this year. We have been so busy with the teachers and curriculum support, but we've been working with the principals. The principals have been with us all the way as we have been supporting teachers. But I hope that they see that as part of supporting them, because these teachers must do well in their schools. But I do want to promise that next year we have to do much better for the principals directly. But I want to thank you because we've really enjoyed to work with you and your support as we've been working with teachers. Thank you.
As we wrap up this program, and I would want to say a very big thank you to the Umlambo Foundation, led by Dr. Umlambo, for hosting us here, and as well as Dr. Rambiana, leading the education department, for bringing together teachers and principals to this event, and also the panelists, facilitator Metoreka, and all the panelists. Thank you very much. Now you can see that the passion for education, and in particular for reading, writing and counting, lies with the mothers. Our senior citizens here, if you look, Dr. Mlabonguka here, Bo Nechadama here, They are all senior citizens, and they're very passionate about reading. Can you see that? Yeah, maybe Moramezis will join soon, but I doubt. Yeah, so we really want to take this moment to appreciate. It's a culmination of greater things to come from the Umlambo Foundation in collaboration with the department, and we would want to see all our schools that are here making an effort to ensure that our learners can read, write, and count, and also that we capacitate our teachers to do likewise. The issue of retirement, as captured in the book there, is a very serious matter. And it's indeed, if more than 50% of our teachers are 60 years and above, how does it affect teaching and learning, as stated there? Because a lot of wealth in terms of knowledge is being lost from the system. Now I have this one phrase. Colleagues, let us aspire to inspire before we expire. Please, let's do our best when we can, so that we support those innocent souls. So in this regard, colleagues, thank you very much, and we're looking forward to having great moments now and also in 2024 in collaboration with the foundation. For the announcements, we will have lunch in the dining hall. So we will allow our the foundation and the department and our panelists, all the people who are here, to leave first as we close. And we will then request principals of schools just to remain for a minute. There are packages of books that you will have to receive. So we want it to be orderly, so that as others move out, you stay behind, then you will have your packages. And as others will be viewing the books outside, let's make it orderly to the dining hall where we will get our refreshments. Program Director.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mujerere. Member Loy, will you please come and close in a word of prayer?
Zinani la manda la mrena wa Yesu Kristo masiara twala na musi robaro kubangana hapa uzimu wa shuji bikwa chuhurane umwana anera kotota achikona ubara babari kotenda uri muzimu wa shu kazeramba hapa zinera kokwinisa kazo uitera mwana ramanda ote wani vadozviita uri zvichimbire zvavudi ribveredzise vana vave naumachero havudi. Zinani la Yesu Kristo ndiko rabhera ndari mudzimu wanga. Hava vatu va Umlambo Foundation vafarisiwa ngavone uri zvikonobverera zvine vone mudzimu vakotoda zvichivonara kalino shango. Ndiko varosha masiyari adwala namusi didisa tendo nandivona kugara. Yehovha hukwediwa zvidiwa ndiko zviraberera dzina la Yesu Kristo. Ndari mudzimu wanga kava zvipatuchedza vapatuchedza na miviri yote inyatozvinanga dzina la Yesu Kristo. Mune washo chibva hapo rikoyo barangana raimidani yashiyo bangana nao ramanda ote kava yechimbirana rine rote risvike mahayani yashu rotsireredza yanga dzina la Yesu Kristo. Amen.